All right, let's get started. Hello, security pros, and good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on today's ESX webinar. The title of today's webinar, Biggest Mistakes Made on First Sales Calls and What to Do to Avoid Them. I think you're going to find this very informative. Getting that first sales call on the calendar is exciting. It signals the start of the sales process and a new opportunity. Making mistakes in the first sales call that cause prospects to close the door before we really get started can lead to undue stress, anxiety, and dreading first sales calls. In this webinar, we will look at the biggest mistakes made in the first call and the behaviors and tools we can use to avoid them. I'm Merlin Gilbo, CEO of ESA, and I'm excited to lead this ESX webinar with our experts from WeSuite today. Before we dive in, I'd like to provide some tips for those of you joining us for the first time. I'd like to remind everyone, if you're a leader from your company looking for sales and leadership advice, the ESA Leadership Summit will kick off in just a few weeks at the Dallas Cowboys World Headquarters in Frisco, Texas. This executive level education and networking event is where the industry's brightest minds take their teams to the next level. Both in-person and virtual passes are available, and you can head over to esasummit.com for more information. Welcome to the webinar. You'll be muted for the duration of this session, but that doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. If you have a question or comment that comes to mind at any point during today's webinar, just click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, and I'll ensure we save some time for your questions with our experts at the end. We'll also be recording today's webinar so you can rewatch the on-demand session and share it with your colleagues. Tomorrow, you will receive an email thanking you for your attendance today with a link to the recording. We at ESA realize that your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending some of that with us today. So let's meet our presenters and speakers today. We have Tracy Larson with us today. Tracy is the president and a founding partner of WeSuite. She's a graduate of Cornell University and has fulfilled leadership roles throughout her career at Computer Associates, ITG Larson Inc., Antorcom, and Diebold. An industry veteran, Tracy is well-versed in security sales, operations, and project delivery. We also have Samantha Perry. Samantha is a senior account executive at WeSuite. She's a dynamic, experienced, and well-versed sales executive with excellent account management and leadership skills. She successfully leads monthly WeSuite client training webinars, has developed and delivered numerous sales education sessions, and specializes in identifying sales workflow improvement to making selling easier, more efficient, and more profitable. And lastly, Robin John. Robin is an inside sales account representative at WeSuite. He's an experienced salesperson with excellent management skills, focused on security integrators and alarm companies with quick, high volume residential and small business sales. He's an observant listener, skilled at assisting WeSuite clients and prospects with finding the best sales workflows to support their top priorities. All right, let's dive in. Tracy, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Merlin. And welcome, everyone. We're so happy to be able to spend some time with you today. So as Merlin said, we're going to talk about some of the biggest mistakes made on those first calls or first meetings and how we can avoid them. Just to give you a little bit about WeSuite and who we are, we were founded in 2008. We were systems integrators, so we know this industry super well, and we love the industry. We've been in it a long time. It's really been the lion's share of my career. Some of the key benefits that our sales software brings to you is that we're really representing a complete sales management workflow. And what I love is that that's unique to each of you. Although we're in the same industry, believe me, every integrator, every alarm company has its own nuances, things that they do differently. And we like to uncover those with you to find the best workflow that works for you. We are all about having detailed estimating so that we've got ways to help you increase profitability and really control your pricing, and making that easy for salespeople. We also are really focused on representing your brand well, and especially in these times where sometimes you may be able to be on site and sometimes you're not. Your proposal and your contract documents being brand forward, consistent, and uniform, really, really important to you as a company. And finally, we naturally give you really good reporting, because as you work through your workflow, we're taking and recording certain pieces of data and give that back to you. So you as salespeople, sales leaders, and executives can get real-time reporting right at your fingertips so that you always know how well you're doing and where you might want to amp it up a little bit. We are highly scalable. We work with sales teams that could be as 3 people, and then we've got many that are hundreds of people. So very, very scalable, and we really are here to help you to grow. And we do have integration with different ERP platforms, some you're familiar with, everything from QuickBooks, Sedona Office. We have a new one coming out right now with Field Hub, SAP Business by Design, and a few others. We also have integration with DocuSign and eOriginal. So if you're really looking for saving time and getting those deals signed quickly, those integrations are especially important. And then we've got, as I said, Field Hub is coming up. We are actually working on an integration with ADI, so you can actually get your parts, in the estimating jobs, real-time pricing right out of ADI. And we have an integration we're working on with Dealer Ally that will affect our Quote Anywhere product. So this will allow you to get financing, your customer to get financing on the spot, so that they can actually sign a deal with you if they're looking to do that. The primary products are WeOpportunity, which are lead management, prospecting, kind of the CRM portion of what we do as salespeople. And then Quote Anywhere and the Site Survey are, it's a really cool mobile and collaborative product. So you actually can collaborate with your clients or your prospects, because all they see is sell pricing. It's a one-stop close kind of product, really easy for salespeople to use. And WeEstimate will help to handle anything from very small to very large sales, and gives you a lot of flexibility. So I'm gonna just share a really quick video with you so you get a little bit of insight into Quote Anywhere, and then we'll continue.
Meet Pete. He works for a security integrator. Pete loves working in sales, but he hates all the paperwork. The data entry, number crunching, estimates, and contracts take time away from what he's best at, meeting with customers and closing deals. Lucky for Pete, his company started using Quote Anywhere and the Site Survey from WeSuite. The mobile platform syncs with his company's WeOpportunity and WeEstimate software, giving him complete access to the most current customer, product, and pricing data when he's out in the field. With Quote Anywhere and the Site Survey, Pete has all the tools he needs right on his tablet to take him from contact to contract. To start quoting a project, Pete can start from scratch or pull up customer and contact fields from his company's WeSuite database. Materials, labor, chargeable items, and monthly services are selected from convenient drop-down menus and added to project folders. Built-in calculator tools calculate pricing and allow Pete to specify quantities. He can also search by name, part number, or description. To help Pete and his customers visualize projects, Quote Anywhere and the Site Survey help him import floor plans, photos, or maps onto a digital canvas, and then drag and drop items into the right locations on the survey. Each part can be represented by a thumbnail photo or icon. Quote Anywhere and the Site Survey comes with a comprehensive library of security icons to choose from. Items dragged onto the canvas are automatically added to Pete's quote along with correct pricing. There's no need for additional data entry. With Quote Anywhere in the site survey, Pete can compile proposals, including price estimates, terms and conditions, and e-signature contracts on the fly, ready to share immediately with his customers. He can skip a trip back to the office to handle all that dreaded paperwork. All information is automatically synced and integrated with the office's ERP software, ready for finance, operations, and support teams to take care of any next steps. This means Pete can head straight to his next appointment, ready to do what he does best: meet more customers and close more deals. Quote Anywhere in the site survey from WeSuite. Visit us online at WeSuite.com to learn more.
So awesome. So now you all know Pete and see that he's got a good process there going on. And thanks to our little software helps, we're always finding ways to make sales better and easier for you. So what I'd like to do is introduce you to us. Thank you, Merlin, for that great introduction. One kind of neat thing since we last had our bios there is that Samantha has been promoted to our director of sales. So she has been with us for about 7 years now. And one of the things that I love about Samantha is that she's really dedicated to knowing our clients well and uncovering with our prospects the things that would work best for them in their sales process. She's very helpful and she's very dedicated. And I think if you work with her, you'll find out that she'll help you to really find what works best for you. And Robin John leads our inside sales team. He's very familiar with those who might be looking for those high volume sales and close on the spot kind of sales. So that Quote Anywhere and Site Survey are a great product that he would really be familiar with and working with you. So one of the best things that that you've got here with the three of us is that we have been out there, we've made the mistakes, and we are willing to talk about them. So we've also found that our mistakes have led to our best triumphs. So we're looking forward just to sharing with you some of the things that we've learned along the way. And certainly we're happy if you'd like to share those along with us later on in when we've got some questions and answers going as well. So we're really here to talk about the biggest mistakes made on that first call or in that first meeting and, how to avoid them. So getting that first meeting or that first call on the calendar is really exciting because it starts our sales process and it gives us that new opportunity. But if we make mistakes in the first call that cause prospects to close the door before we can really get it open, that can create a lot of stress and anxiety and kind of dread for future sales calls. So that's why today we're going to look at some of those biggest mistakes and we're going to figure out some of the behaviors and the tools we can use to change those and turn them into success. So let's talk about the big ones. That first meeting is really what stands between us and our next steps in the process. So we need to make it count. And Sam and Rob and I challenged ourselves to think of some of the worst things that happened to us or things that we did and how we could recover thereafter. So the first one is kind of interesting. We could be thrown by a personality we meet. So think about a time when you've met someone who's just really the opposite of what you expected, or they're just really difficult from the start. And in the moment that you realize that, you have to determine, how are you going to handle this? I remember a first meeting where I felt very prepared heading in, although I have to admit, I had not met the primary contact before, and I wasn't provided with any insight into his personality. And it turns out he was very, very challenging. No matter what was said, he had actually done it before, and of course he had done it better. So I quickly realized that there was nothing I could do except ask him questions that were about him. And in doing so, he revealed much more about his personality as kind of the top dog. And he laid out examples of problems, how he intended to solve them, and things that worked for him or didn't. So it became clear that as long as we addressed his top priorities in a manner to his liking, I had a chance. So personalities like this can be very condescending. And part of what we need to do is just let that behavior roll away, and just continue to move forward. To get a second meeting, I asked him what he envisioned as the solution, what he felt would not work, and how he pictured success with a business partner. And that put us on a path to success. The other thing I learned from that experience was always to try to get insight into the personalities and expectations of key players who I haven't met before, but will be in that first call or that first meeting. Sam, I think you have another example of this.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. Hi, everybody. I've also spoken to my fair share of personalities over the years, and I learned as salespeople, we really do have to pivot our own personalities to best fit a prospect and their ideal way of being spoken to. That isn't always easy on a first call, and it takes practice, but I've realized the importance of this from a particular past experience. I was having a nice call with someone. We had gone through my whole process, and towards the end of the call, I then asked who will ultimately be making this decision. He immediately got very offended that I had implied it wasn't going to be him making this decision, and he ended up ending the call just based on how I phrased that question. So I now say something more like, who besides you is typically involved in making decisions like this? And this has really helped me in all of my questioning strategies, help me pose questions differently with less assumption and less implied answers to make the prospect feel more comfortable.
That's great. That's really good advice. The second thing that we probably can all identify with is that we avoid asking questions that we feel uncomfortable with. And so this is often about our own head trash, something that is, it could be the way we think of money or the way that we think about asking something to someone else. And it just is something that makes us uncomfortable. And so we avoid asking questions that we really need to ask. So Sam, I think you have another really good example of this.
Yeah, I think in talking about money, that can be very difficult for people. If you find it hard to ask money questions, often explaining why you're asking helps. And it can also help to use a bracketing technique to provide the other person options for answering. So one example could be trying to get an idea of a prospect's annual revenue. I might say something like, so I have a better idea of your overall company size. Would you say that your annual revenue is somewhere between 3 to 5 million, 5 to 10 million, or over 10 million? Giving them these options, makes them more comfortable to provide you an answer. Another example could be around budget. As salespeople, we always try to get in, hey, have you set aside any budget for this project? And you may get a yes or no to that question, but following it up using these bracketing techniques can help you determine the amount of money that they have in mind to spend or what they aren't prepared to spend. And that can help you vet the opportunity budget much earlier on.
Yeah, that's often awesome. I think that money is one of those things that's very, very personal in our own heads in terms of how we talk about it. So think of some of those things that might make you uncomfortable and see if there are ways that you can kind of ask, practice that ask so you get to feel comfortable. So a third thing is that we aren't focused. We forget to talk about important points that really help us to vet the opportunity. So Robin, I think you have a couple good examples here of this one.
Yes, Tracy, I definitely do. I worked on getting a first meeting with someone for over a week, and I vetted a lot of information with him. And when it came to the point to move ahead and sign the deal, he let me know he wasn't even the decision maker. That was the time I learned that I need to find out who the decision makers are as one of my questions in venting the opportunity. Another example that it's often helpful to find out when they intend to make the purchase, if they are in the early stages or if they are versus in the buying window. The questions I would ask, because I have that information and what to do next are very different.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Awesome, because our final biggest mistake has to do with not being prepared. And that's something where, we aren't prepared. We start to kind of stumble through an agenda that we had in mind. I mean, we might say the wrong thing. And in doing so, we proceed to waste not only our time, but the prospects. And that can leave a bad impression that is really hard to recover from. Sam, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I would say that the biggest thing when we aren't prepared is that we aren't then in the driver's seat as the salesperson during that meeting. In these cases, the prospect starts to run the meeting and it totally derails the process that you were hoping for. And it can be really difficult to regain that control. And often the prospect will either lose interest or cut the meeting short because they've already gotten all the answers that they wanted, but I haven't gotten my answers. So ultimately, they didn't get to experience the benefit of the process I wanted to present to them. So being prepared is really important in terms of getting to the next steps and moving the process forward on your terms.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I'm really glad you said that, because now we're going to head into some solutions. So our first sage word of advice is to prepare. You want to treat every first meeting as new and not rely on the fact that you might have done this 100 times before. Preparation needs to be very customer focused. You want to learn as much as you can about them ahead of time. Your mission is to find out that you actually can help and how. And you want to leave them knowing that too. So Sam, walk us through some tips on meeting preparation, whether it's a webinar or an in-person meeting. What are some of the things you would say to do here?
Yeah, I would say I have kind of top 3 tips. So first, always allot yourself at least 15 to 30 minutes before a meeting to prepare. This gets you focused on the conversation, ready with all the notes in front of you and brownie points. The prospect will be able to tell if you've prepared, and that leaves a good impression on them, knowing that you felt that they are important to you. Secondly, use your CRM. Record as much information as possible about the prospect. That will make it really easy to pull it up in that 15-30 minute window right before the meeting. Record notes before the meeting, during the meeting, after the meeting, and try to capture all that information, like Tracy mentioned, that's customer focused. Geographies that they're covering, markets that they play in, products that they're interested in, the size of the company, their revenue. Look into, are there any recent press releases or anything in the news? Review their website is key. Also, make sure you're getting to know the leadership team and that information. I'm always reviewing LinkedIn connections, seeing if I have any mutual connections that may be through another company or maybe a consultant you've worked with before, and then how can they help you prepare? And then entering all of that, having that, at your fingertips ultimately keeps you focused, and you can close the sale faster. And I found that to be just invaluable, especially when I have a lot going on. And lastly, with all of that, like Tracy had mentioned, every conversation is different. So plan your conversation, jot down what you want to be sure to ask. Even if you've done it 100 times, every prospect may go on a different tangent, and you may forget to ask the one question you usually always remember to ask.
That's definitely happened to me. And there's a really good piece of advice there. I know Salmon, and she's always well prepared. And I know how much her prospects and clients really appreciate that. It's really interesting to me, salespeople who balk at preparation and using their CRM to support that part of the process, limit their success. The superstars out there know that information and strategy are key to sales success, and they take advantage of preparing and using the features of their CRM with discipline and effectiveness. And I've definitely seen that with both Sam and Robin here. So the next thing we want to do is set the hook. And this is all about a conversation that creates value for the prospect. The first 90 seconds either get the attention of the prospect in terms of how you can help them, or you will sound like every other salesperson out there. So we want to use those first 90 seconds really to our benefit. Robin, would you give us an example of this?
Yes. So instead of leading with all the amazing things, you do just like everyone else, for instance, your great service, you're this, you're that, use this time to do something different. Say something like, I'm curious, what are some of the unique security challenges you face? Knowing this will help us determine if me and my team may be able to help and how we can do so, getting them thinking and talking about themselves and providing you more information. So here, the differentiator is that you didn't lead with all being about you. As a customer, they like knowing that you want to talk about their needs.
That's great. So doing something different than every other salesperson in that first 90 seconds, flipping the tables and asking about their unique challenges, making it all about them is a great piece of advice. So to get to that next meeting, there must be a compelling reason to continue the conversation. And the only way that you're going to be able to uncover that is by asking the right questions. These questions are things that provoke thought, that help the prospects to really pinpoint their needs and quantify how strongly they feel about them. Robin, what do you do in this regard?
Personally, for me, I like to have specific questions lined up, questions that I know will help peel back the layers of the onion so that the prospect is revealing their issues. As we go deeper, we are getting to root problems they need help with. As we do this, we feel the sense of a team, and they become advocates with me for addressing the problems and truly start to consider the solution we can arrive at together.
Nice. So together you're building a case for how you can help. And without realizing it, prospects are becoming kind of your inside advocates for your proposed solutions and as well for you and your team. So I guess this process of peeling back the layer of the onions, like you said, is something that also helps you identify fairly quickly if you're not able to help. And I think that that's an important discovery to make early on. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. So the whole goal here is to really vet that opportunity. So as you research and find out more about prospects, jotting down areas of conversation that are important to explore, you're really trying to figure out what you need to know. So what are the questions and the answers that allow you to determine whether the prospect is truly ready to proceed? That's really where we're at here. So Robin, I'm going to go back to you. What would you say in this case?
But Tracy, I will go back to using the techniques that help uncover the prospect's priorities. Ask questions that, when answered, confirms that the prospect is in the buying window or not. For instance, after asking about when they intend to fix the problem as soon as possible, pose another question. For example, like, Mr. Prospect, on the scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not important and 10 being that we have to have this done in the next 90 days, where would you fall? So if the prospect says anything 5 or lower, this project is not immediate priority for them. You will have to ask another follow-up question. So, Mr. Prospect, what would move your answer from a 4 to 9 or maybe a 10? That makes the prospect really think about the problems that could happen and make these issues an immediate problem to solve. Another question after that might be is, and if that happens, what are the risks to you and your organization, or maybe for your customers?
I love that. I think, when prospects start to identify and quantify risk, it really is a huge help because they're realizing themselves what, not finding a solution could cost. So by including questions like these that really help you vet the priority this opportunity has, themselves, you're gaining a lot better understanding as the potential sale for you. And you're also gaining insight into their priorities and why they are important to them. And that really helps you understand how best you may be able to help. So one primary objective of a first sales call or meeting is to determine the validity of the prospect, the reason to keep talking, and how you are different from everyone else. So we're going to talk now about visualizing the conversation and why that's so important. No matter how well you do your homework before the meeting, you can never be sure in which direction the conversation might head. That's why you need to prepare for all possibilities. So the person you're talking to may be a cut to the chase kind of person, or he may be very nice and non-committal, or maybe she's very interested and you've hit her timing just right. You may discover you're meeting with the wrong person entirely and you need to get your foot in the door with someone else. Each of these conversations are very different, so you need to prepare and practice all of them. Visualizing various scenarios featuring a range of possibilities and personalities will help you to gracefully pivot to the right tone and talking points during the meeting, keeping you in control and moving everyone's focus in the right direction. So Sam, would you share with us some of the things you do to prepare for conversations?
Yeah, so in these situations, you definitely want to make sure that you have some prep notes for yourself, jot down what you want to be sure to say, visualize how you're going to pose the questions, especially if you may feel uncomfortable asking. And then secondly, I'll take those notes and I'll also segment them into certain topics, and I'll share that with the prospect, and I'll, help visualize the conversation for them as to paint the whole picture as to why I'm going to be asking these questions. And what I'm going to be doing with the call. And this makes the prospect a part of getting to the solution. Keep in mind, you can do this whether you're meeting via webinar or in person. So it's okay and it's good, in my opinion, to have notes in front of you, and practicing and visualizing that conversation is really, really important. Then I would also say, make sure you're storing all of this in your CRM so it's easy to find and review and repeat for next time. And if you're having difficulty visualizing the conversation, or, this is the first few times that you've done it, I find it helpful to envision the end of the call, right? What do you need to know? How are you, what do you want the end of the call to result in? And then plan your conversation backwards that way.
I love that tip. I think it's really great. So knowing what you want the outcome to be is a great way to figure out how to get there. That's awesome. So everybody, you've got to have some guts. So sometimes it becomes obvious that the prospect is not a good match. And in cases like this, cutting your losses early does everyone a favor. You're demonstrating that you respect the prospect's time. You can free yourself up and perhaps others on your team who might be working with you to pursue qualified opportunities. As salespeople, being realistic and calling it and moving on ultimately increases your productivity by getting rid of the drag. Sam, what do you think here?
Yeah, I would agree. It doesn't always feel good, but when you record that you've lost a lead and during what step of the process, it can be really valuable information for the future. So I would really recommend configuring a selectable loss reason in your CRM. This keeps that historical info for future use. And, loss reasons are a really great reporting point. And this is a two-factor, right? You're qualifying losses and you're also quantifying them. So when you're reviewing opportunities and why you lost them for any specific reason, you may find that you can pivot and change what you're doing, right? Maybe change an offering, maybe there's a coaching opportunity, or maybe you and your team are doing a really good job at calling the losses and not wasting time. Robin, what do you think?
Exactly, Sam. And I think it's always important to remember, even if the opportunity isn't for you, it may not be a total loss. Ask if there's any interest down the road. Would the prospect consider you and your company? And if they indicate they would, ask if they wouldn't mind sharing the things you've discussed with them that they said yes to. Another thing which is important is ask for referrals. I think many of us hear that voice in back of our minds reminding us, but we aren't always comfortable and forward that opportunity. Remember, there is no harm in asking. This prospect may know someone exactly right for you.
Yeah, that is so true. And I'm definitely guilty of forgetting to ask for that referral. I also want to share, one salesperson I talked to recently said to me, when I hear no, it means not right now. And I thought that was really well put, because at heart, we are farmers. Planting the seed today may not result in it sprouting right away, but but it may come back to you in the future. So we've got to have guts and carry on. So we wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the things we've observed with superstars. And sales superstars just know that information and strategy are key to their success. Sam, would you walk us through this piece?
Yeah, so, I can't stress it enough, update your CRM. Really, you should be logged in all day, right? You want to be focusing on next steps, when's the last time you spoke to somebody, reminders, notes, key data points, the decision makers. This is going to be crucial for staying on time, and having a lot more first meetings. Secondly, and I didn't mention it before, but you really want to have your post meeting is almost as important as your prep for the meeting. Post meeting is still part of the first meeting, right? Allot yourself 15 to 30 minutes. It's fresh in your mind and you're able to hop right on those next tasks and it doesn't get forgotten. Really try not to end a meeting without a next step, right? If you're with somebody or you're on the phone, always make sure that they have agreed on that next step. Record this in your in your CRM, and then you get the strategy, out of your head, and you keep to your timeline. Next, I think it would also be really important to debrief with your sales leaders and other salespeople. Tracy and I have traveled around and sat in other people's sales meetings, and I always find that to be a lot of fun to see what they talk about. Maybe even set that as a recurring meeting, talking about the good, the bad, the ugly, right? What went well, what didn't go well, what did we miss? Be honest and be humble about it. Listen to other people's thoughts and advice. It may be hard at first, but once you do this a few times, you do really look forward to it. And you and your colleagues will help each other, to grow and improve and ultimately hopefully get a call back on track. And lastly, when all else fails, just keep remembering in sales, we always get redos, right? They're called new prospects. So, you're always going to be improving your process. You're never done learning and you learn from all these mistakes.
Well said. Well said. So really turning your biggest mistakes into your best wins is what this is about. So, if you make a mistake, chalk it up, break it down into lessons learned. And as you do that, put those lessons into action, really decide next time, even if it's a gutsy move on your part, which sometimes it has to be, what's the worst thing that can happen? Somebody says, no, it's not a big deal. Laugh about mistakes. A lot of times we make these mistakes and they later become our sales history. They become, kind of the legend of our stories when we're talking with our colleagues and friends. So usually there's some good humor in there, and go ahead and find it, because it really does make your sales life a lot easier. And don't beat yourself up. Take on the next opportunity with a new strategy. Just try something different. And I hope that some of the things we've talked about today are things that kind of ring true with you, or something, maybe we've said something that you'll take action on next. That would be very pleasing to us, and we'd love to hear how that turned out. So we're going to start with some questions and answers in just a minute, but just to kind of let you know how we help to improve sales. What's really most important to us in working with you is that we uncover the sales workflows that are really best for you and your team. And oftentimes, by the way, we find workflows that are different on the same team. So depending on, what is being sold, team A may be doing one thing and team B something else. And so having that flexibility to support those things is really important to us. Learning the sales workflow is easy for new salespeople when you have a tool. It's like having a foundation for growth of your business. And that's, I think, super important here, is that oftentimes we work with clients who are struggling to grow. And a lot of time it's because they don't have a sales process that's easy to support. Salespeople like to know that what they're doing is blessed by the company, that they're able to kind of do what they need to, unless they've got to get an approval or something like that. But let it go, let them do their thing. we centralize data. And I think that's hugely important because that means that there's less redundancy, there's less typing, there's less, concern about not pricing products and services properly. It's easier to generate documents, things like that. So we're automating key areas of your sales process and really saving time, not just for salespeople, which we think is very important. That's the number one thing that they complain about, but also for other resources. And all of that increases profitability in the sale and profitability in delivery. Our consultative approach is something that I think is very, very important to us at WeSuite. We really like to dig in and find out about you and how we can help and how we can work together. And ultimately, all of us on our team, our DNA is to be go-to for you. Our team is known for excellent support and for actually getting to know our clients, and we enjoy that. And then finally, we've got a lot of ongoing free education. We have dedicated a lot of time to creating our WeSuite Academy, which is free video learning. You can use it anytime you like. We've got very good webinars we put on twice a month. One is focused for system administrators and one is focused on salespeople. And we do record them and put them all up on our website. And we've got a terrific knowledge base. So WeSuite is all about helping you in the industry to sell better, earn more money, and to grow your businesses. So do we have any questions out there?
All right, thank you, Tracy. That was a great presentation. Samantha, Robin, good job. So let me remind everyone, you can post your questions using the Q&A icon at the bottom of the screen. We do have a couple of questions that we'll get to here, but want to encourage anyone who has a question or comment, please do so by posting it in the Q&A section. So here's the first question, and I believe it's for you, Tracy. What if a prospect asks a couple of times, how much is this going to cost? And we haven't arrived at a solution yet. How would you handle that one?
So that happens a lot. I'm sure one of the first things everybody hears is, how much is it going to cost? And so I think the answer is to try to slow the prospect down a little bit. You could say something like, I'm not sure yet, but the answer sounds important to you. So let's look at the solution you really feel you need, and we can figure out the investment and see if that fits your budget. Another is to ask something like, it sounds like the investment is very important to you. What is the budget you have in mind for this project? And then the third option, especially if they become very insistent, is to say something like, option A could be somewhere between X dollars and Y dollars, and option B is probably more like Z or above, which is more appealing to you. So you're kind of, getting them to talk a little bit more than just continually ask how much something's going to cost.
All right, a couple of more questions. What are some good ways to handle why should we choose your company instead of another one? They sell the same thing. So Sam, do you want to handle that one?
Yeah. So I think, part of conversation prep is, and this is whether you're new to your organization or you've been there a long time, but you really want to stay current with the people that you partner with, the people or other things that may be competition to you. Having some of that prepared conversation really makes you the subject matter expert and provides really good insight for the prospect. And also, stick to your questioning strategies. They're probably asking you that for a reason. So you could respond with something like, what other people are you looking at? Or what are some of the things that you're looking for in a provider that maybe you aren't getting? And that can help, for them to provide you more information so you can be better prepared to answer that question.
All right, fantastic. Just to add a little shameless plug there, you can always make sure they understand that you're a member of the trade association, right? Distinguish yourself from the competition.
Yeah, that's a good
Looks
one. I
like we
like
have
that.
one more question here. What about someone who thinks our solution is too expensive? Robin, you want to take that one?
Yeah, never heard this before. Yeah, so here you first want to understand what they mean by expensive, or why they feel the solution is too expensive, and also confirm that you are the provider they feel comfortable with and want to move forward with. I mean, if you aren't, then the cost is not the solution. Cost is not the solution. It's not the most important issue for them, for sure. A couple of other ideas is ask, is there a certain aspect of the solution presented that is expensive? Try to understand what it is and why do they feel that way. You can also ask if they would like to look at top priorities and how each fits into their budget. Or probably just, maybe just, the way they face a project, they could look into that as well.
Fantastic, great advice. So we have time for just a few more questions. And while we're letting folks type in, I just want to say thank you to WeSuite for not only the support of this webinar, but Tracy, you and your team have always been supportive of ESX and Leadership Summit. And I understand we'll see you in person in just a couple of weeks. So for those of you watching, if you want to make last minute plans to join us in Frisco, Texas, please do so. And you'll be able to visit WeSuite personally in person. But also just want to thank you guys for your support of ESA. Always willing to participate and help out, and we really appreciate that. So I don't see any more questions, so we're going to wrap things up. Any parting comments, Tracy, Samantha, Robin?
Just want to say thank you to all of you at ESA. This has been great. And yeah, we are looking forward to Leadership Summit in person and seeing everybody there. Sam, Robin, anything else?
Yeah, no. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so
Great.
much, team. Appreciate that.
All right, this has been fantastic. If you're coming to Leadership Summit, bring your favorite NFL jersey. You won't want to miss the spectacular facility that we're going to be staying in. Even if you're not a Cowboys fan, you will be amazed at this facility. See you all in a couple of weeks. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.